It is 100.5 WOWFM, Dave's Video Graveyard for your Monday night. An absolute pleasure to be with you. Now it is time for an institution here on DVG. It is time for another Guest Choice special, and tonight we have a very special guest indeed, burlesque artist Scarlette Santanico. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you doing tonight?
Very well. Now, I know obviously that's your birth name, but I did have to ask, inspired by From Dusk Till Dawn at all?
Yes, it is.
Very
good
lovely.
Guess.
That is one videotape that I wore out when I was younger because I liked vampires, that's all.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you so much for joining us this evening. It is really awesome to have you here. This evening we're talking all about your favourite films of all time, all about you as a burlesque artist. So why not start off with a little bit of background? How did you get into burlesque?
Well, look, I've really only been doing this for about a year, so I can't take all the credit and say, yes, I'm a burlesque artist.
You can.
I know. I'm not quite ready to take that jump yet, but I'll take it. Whatever. So I've been dancing with a school called Hot Sauce Burlesque,
Yep.
coming up to celebrate my 1-year anniversary this year. And as soon as I started, it just took off for me. It was just the most amazing way to express myself. Haven't been able to do that my whole entire life, basically. So it just fit me perfectly. So took a few group classes, and very quickly I was like, I want to be a solo performer. And our head hottie there, Lyra LaBelle, she sort of took me under her wing and was just like, go for it.
Awesome. Isn't it amazing though, the way the local scene's set up with burlesque, everyone is so supportive that it almost, you show up with your L plates on and everyone like really gets around it. And it doesn't take long. Like we've had so many burlesque artists on the show and it does not take long to get a name behind yourself. And so it's one of those things where you've got to make sure you don't step on any toes as well, because it will be remembered. And, of course, the burlesque scene's not the most forgiving.
Absolutely. Also, I've heard. I haven't.
These are all my words. These are all my words. All the beef will
I'll
be
take your word for it.
Dave's Video Graveyard versus of the world, according to my 4-year-old daughter. I should know how old she is.
She's been well educated.
She's been mine for 2 years, yeah. So obviously tonight we will be celebrating your 10 favourite films of all time. Every time we have a guest choice special, the guest cries to me about how difficult it is to wean down to 10.
Oh, I'm glad I'm not the only one then.
How was it for you?
Terribly, terribly difficult. I am like a lot of women. I suck at making decisions. So every time I came to a movie, I'd be like, okay, cross that one out. And I got it down to about 15. Then you messaged me the other day and you were like, tick-tock. And I was like, right, okay, time to wean it down.
I do love, we get the occasional people that you can tell. It shows a lot to me about the way people were in high school, because you get the people, which I don't mind about the deadline. It just gives me more time to get things ready. But I always enjoy when you know that the person has just gone on Netflix and scrolled through, because it's like the trending thing. It's like 4 movies from there. It's like, come on, I want to know your favourite films. Yeah. So what are some movies that didn't make the list that otherwise would be on your list of favourite films?
There was definitely a few. So an approach I took to making my list was obviously my all-time favourite actors or actresses.
Yep.
So I am a big Adam Sandler fan, which those close to me know. And he has a lot of early original films that I would have liked to include. One in particular was The Wedding Singer.
Lovely. One of the greatest rom-coms of all time.
Yes, I do love a good rom-com.
I'm such a fan of Adam Sandler, but it became trendy about 4 or 5 years ago to like just hate on all these movies after Jack and Jill, which fair enough. However, I'm the one guy that's like, That's My Boy is probably the funniest movie he's done in a very long time.
Absolutely.
I'm really excited about his Halloween movie coming out this month.
I haven't heard about that one.
You need to watch the trailer. It's all his usual supporting characters.
Awesome.
And I just really love it. Everyone was like, oh, he's back to form with Uncut Gems, which came out, which was, his another serious turn from him. But I've always had a soft spot outside of Jack and Jill.
Yeah.
I love everything that he's done.
Yeah. He's a funny guy, and he gets a lot of bad words.
Yep.
And I'm just like, I don't care. I love him. He makes me laugh, and that's the important thing.
We just copped a message on our social media from Miss Burlesque SA herself, Miss Moisty, saying
Moisty.
that I should watch my words with Burlesque.
Ooh, okay.
Because I upset Miss Moisty one time before when I said that it's just it's stripping for people that don't like cardio as a joke.
Ooh.
As a joke, and she didn't love it.
Ouch.
And now she's sending words that cannot be said on radio. So shout out to Miss Moisty. Adam Sandler has a fantastic body of work. I think Ridiculous Six or whatever, or one of his Netflix movies was terrible.
Yeah, he's got a few Netflix movies that are, yeah.
And everyone always throws crap at grown-ups, but I find myself
like
watching
that.
them all the time.
Yes. Yeah,
we're talking Grown Ups 2, a movie where Stone Cold Steve Austin is dressed as the Terminator. It's got everything you'd want from Adam Sandler and more. And I just love his supporting cast of characters. That's all the people that are in his new Halloween movie, essentially that. So what else didn't make the list?
What else did not make the list? I'm a big musical fan, and I had to take one off, and that was the Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Yep.
That's got to be one of my up there films from back in my early days, and got me into my singing roots.
Yep.
So that one unfortunately didn't quite make it. I had to cut one out, and that was the one.
Have you ever managed to get along to one of the midnight screenings that they have in Adelaide for that?
No.
They do sing-alongs where pretty much the entire crowd, me and my wife when we first moved to SA, went to one at the Capri Theatre.
Amazing.
And I got a little bit annoyed because I love musicals where everyone sings along. But this was every person in the audience actually spoke along with all the dialogue. And it just annoyed the crap out of me. I was like, no and thank you. Get to the songs and get to Susan Sarandon. And no, that's a fantastic film. What else didn't make your list?
The new Joker.
Yep.
I'm a big fan at the moment. I'm just getting into like the DC stuff, Joker, Harley Quinn. You probably noticed that I've got Harley up there.
Yep.
And that was such an awesome film. I remember watching that at the cinemas and just walking out and being like power to the people. I'm just like, I feel amazing. And I'm just like, it was really good, but I'm just like, it's not going to, it's not one that I've watched over and over and over again. Like I said, this was such a hard decision to cut movies out of. But that one was like, I haven't quite watched it enough times to say, yep, this is one of my all-time favourite films, but high up on the list there.
Awesome. And also shout out to our good friend Jamie on the social media. He wanted to know if I wore fishnet stockings when I went to Rocky Horror. And I think anyone that knows how much the great shape that I'm in, I clearly was dressed as Eddie because meatloaf is life,
Absolutely.
Not only in my diet but in my looks. So, shout out to Jamie for messaging in. I am a huge... Are there any other musicals that, like obviously you said Rocky Horror Picture Show, are there any other musicals that really rate highly that aren't on your list? Or
look, as far as like Disney movies go that I've seen in musical, I went and saw Grease obviously as well. That was...
Just warning you, this is a Grease 2 safe zone.
Oh!
I love Grease 2, and I'm probably one of 4 people I've ever met that love that film.
I haven't even brought myself to watching it yet. I'm an originals girl, and some sequels I'll watch.
It is a Kmart brand sequel.
Right.
It is just, trying very hard to be Grease 1, but it's motorbikes and none of the star power, and I love it though, because it is so... It's so smutty, for lack of a better term. Like, they kind of went like, we've really got to capture the younger audience. Right. So they made it dirtier than Grease was. And it's a sight to behold. That's the best way I can put it.
I'll have to give it a try. I will.
Now, I was quite impressed. Obviously, Joker was fantastic. It was one of those films. It was like the film equivalent of Breaking Bad, where everyone I met just kept telling me how amazing it was, to the point where I'm like, You're not motivating me to see it. Can someone give me... I want a perspective where someone says, oh, it's good, but there's this. But no one gave any buts. It was all just, it's fantastic. I did see today that Joaquin Phoenix and his wife had their first son and named it River, which is just all class.
Yeah, there's some crazy star names going around at the moment, and that one really shocked me, as well as the Radix.
Radix?
Have you heard of that?
No.
That's between, I think, Cameron Diaz and whatever Madden brother she's with.
Radix, I like it.
Radix, yeah.
I want my first name to be Rad, just because I'm aging poorly from the 90s more than anything else.
Yeah.
Were there any other films that didn't make your list?
We've got on here a Jim Carrey movie, and there was a few there that I was tossing up between.
Without giving it away, give me a clue.
To the one that's on my list, or the one
that didn't make it?
Didn't make it. Colour of my microphone.
Yeah, right.
An early one.
Well, I'm thinking it might be The Mask. But then it also could have been Batman Forever, because that's DC, and it's also him dressed in green as the Riddler.
Of course. Wow.
Now,
That's
to
clever.
spoil a little bit of your list this evening, you've picked one of the greatest comedy films of all time, except you didn't pick the sequel, which is my personal favourite film. To the point of, silliness like that.
Oh, it was hard.
Nice.
It was hard, and I rewatched both of them to work out. I'm like, which one's it going to be? And I'm like, I'm an original gal.
The last time I watched the two of them, I'm like, this is not going to be played on free-to-air TV ever again. But I'm glad you're celebrating it this evening.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Not that I've written down and that I can remember, but yeah, that's about it.
It is 100.5 WOWFM as we start things off here on DVG this evening. It is time now to find all about Scarlett and her favourite films, basically a bit of a history when it comes to her and films. So the first question of the DVG quiz, stolen from High Fidelity here on WOWFM. What was your local video store growing up?
Okay, so this one was difficult answering as well because we moved around a lot.
Yep.
And I've got a pretty vacant memory of when I was a kid, but I'm going to say it's either a Blockbuster Video somewhere in Mount Gambier or the old Atlantic Video at Semaphore.
Lovely. That one does come up. A lot of love for Atlantic Group getting here on WOWFM. So you from the Gambier?
From all over South Australia, but I was born in Mount Gambier. Yes, indeed.
I would just check where my wallet is and make sure it stays there. All right. If you were to build a Mount Rushmore of actors or actresses, who would be the 4 that you would put up there?
Ooh, I've got 10.
Okay, 10's fine. 10's fine.
But I can break it down.
It's your mountain. You're making it, so you can go with 10.
I can absolutely break it down.
No, let's do 10.
All right, let's go. Because I broke it down into male, female. Of course I did. Females, top of the list is my Margot Robbie.
Lovely.
I've had a thing for her since she was in Neighbours. So...
Do you remember the storyline? Because we actually, after my first son was born, started watching Neighbours simply for the fact my wife and I named our first son Declan. And at the time, Declan was one of the main characters on Neighbours. And everyone's like, did you name him after the character from Neighbours? And we're like, what are you talking about? So we started watching it, and I've got to admit, we got addicted. We really started watching it for maybe 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, I reckon that was about the time that I was watching it too.
And the storyline where Margot Robbie wore a bad wig and was copying one of the other girls and stalking her and trying to get with her boyfriend, and it was something because I was like, it was a moment where I'm like, because she acted so kooky and I didn't realize what a good actor I was. This girl is going to go nowhere. She is terrible.
I loved her.
And then
from the get-go.
Yeah, then to see just her range, and it's like, oh no, she was just acting really well. I totally bought into it.
Exactly.
All right, so Margot Robbie is up there.
Margot Robbie. We got Drew Barrymore.
Perfect.
As the second woman. One of my, strong women that I look up to type figures.
I was only just today watching a clip because she obviously has her own talk show now.
I had no idea.
It is fantastic, and today's guest was Tom Green. And it's the first time
Amazing.
they've spoken in 20 years since they were
Wow.
divorced.
Wow.
And it was really beautiful because they're basically saying, we've both lived lives in the last 20 years. It's gone so quickly. It's so good to regroup and just, we were young, and no malice.
Yeah.
And I just thought that was awesome. But you've really got to check out her talk show because she does get a lot of guests that have links to her movies and past. So she had Cameron Diaz and Lucy Liu from
Charlie's Angels.
Charlie's Angels.
Yep.
She's also had Adam Sandler because they've done so many great movies together.
Yeah.
But yeah, I believe I would put her on one of my Mount Rushmores also.
Yeah, she's great. And the fact that she does so many movies with Adam Sandler is just even greater. Third woman I've got here is Jennifer Aniston.
Nice.
A little bit strange for me, but I'm like, you know what? I really like her.
She does not age though.
No, I know. This woman's like 50-something years old and she just does not age and she makes me laugh. And I'm a sucker for someone that make me laugh.
I was quite surprised because I had written her off as kind of a one-trick pony. I'm like, you're always going to be Rachel.
Absolutely.
And then when she played the super dirty boss in Horrible Bosses,
yeah,
blew my mind that she could go that far. I was like, I have been wrong all that time.
Yep.
I was a huge fan. Obviously, she shot to fame with Friends, but after Friends got big, the Australian Comedy Channel brought back Mad TV. Oh, I think it was Mad TV. It was a really early sitcom, and she was on it before Friends. And she shone so much more than the rest of the cast members. Like, no wonder she's the famous one at the time. Who else makes your list?
All right, well, we'll scrap that one because it's only meant to be 4. I've got here, of course, let's go Adam Sandler.
Adam Sandler, lovely. Yep.
I get so much shit for that one, but I love him.
This is a Sandler safe space,
yes,
okay?
Thank you.
I'm really excited for his Halloween movie. I've watched the trailer so many times.
You're gonna have to remind me of that one. So definitely Adam Sandler, and then Jim Carrey. Like, again, randomly, I love someone that can make me laugh.
Yeah. I even love woke Jim Carrey now because he's super woke and super just over the business, and he doesn't. He's doing everything for himself now, as in he's not jumping through any hoops. He's not trying to please anyone. He's just making what he considers art. And that is so awesome that he can do, I always say, look at 1994 for Jim Carrey. He had The Mask, Ace Ventura, and Dumb and Dumber in the 1 year. That's I don't think any other actor has had a year like that.
Yeah. But he's definitely up there on my comedy list. Then we've got Tom Hardy, and I'm like...
Bit of objectification never went astray.
I'm like, is it the Mask? No, he's actually a really good actor.
100%.
Yeah, I started getting into his movies, just, Googling, and I'm just like, wow, he's actually quite diverse when you look into his different movies.
I cannot think. I believe it's called Lawless, and it's about the Moonshine brothers running Moonshine.
Yeah.
Because Tom Hardy is, for the most part, a method actor. And so is Shia LaBeouf.
Yeah.
So because the character that Shia LaBeouf played was an alcoholic that was addicted to moonshine, Shia LaBeouf actually just got drunk every day on moonshine.
Yeah.
And ended up having a fist fight with Tom Hardy. And I was like, I love that Tom Hardy is so intense in everything he does.
Yeah.
That it got to the point of a fist fight on set.
Yeah.
Your choice this evening is a great example of his strength as an actor.
Yeah.
Because, a lot of people just know him as Bane.
Yeah.
But he's so much more than...
that's where I first sort of met him, and I'm just like, oh, man, who is this guy?
Yeah.
And I was like, right, I'm going to have to search him a little bit more. And he's just, he's got so much diversity. I love it.
And he's fun to look at.
That too.
Who else makes your list?
We got Heath Ledger, a classic. There's heaps of, obviously, early movies that he did that I loved. And
10 Things I Hate About You is my favourite chick flick.
That almost made my list. That's one I forgot. I had it down there and I'm like, so good in that one. And the when A Knight's Tale.
Knight's Tale.
Yeah.
I made my children watch that recently. It holds up so well. Except the weird thing I didn't remember is all the music's like modern in it. So they're dancing to David Bowie, which is really bizarre. But that movie's a lot of fun and doesn't get the credit it deserves, I think.
Yeah.
And obviously gone too soon. So.
Yeah, absolutely. 2 more. We got Johnny Depp. I'm a massive Johnny Depp fan.
Yep.
Always have been. And Daniel Radcliffe. Again, I like actors or actresses that
You've spoiled so much of your list this evening.
No, not at all. I'm into actors that are really good and can like take on different characters and like strange characters as well and play them really well.
Yeah. I'd argue that in maybe the last few years he's come a bit of a parody of himself.
Is this Daniel?
Sorry,
Johnny
I'm Johnny
Depp?
Depp. Daniel Radcliffe has gone the opposite way, and he's proved to the world that he's not Harry Potter.
Absolutely.
Guns Akimbo was fantastic.
Yes.
The movie Horns is one of the coolest movies
Yep.
ever, and I tried to sell it to so many people that just wrote it off, because even I am not the biggest Harry Potter fan at all. I'm not even the biggest Harry Potter in this room if I'm the only person here. But that movie was, this man can act, and we're talking about a man that can be in one of the biggest teen franchises of all time, being Harry Potter, and then be in a movie where he plays a dead body that gets around by farting.
Yeah.
So that is diversity to me.
Crazy. Absolutely. But yeah, totally agree with the Johnny Depp comment there. He's, in the last few years, he's gone a bit off track for me, but he'll always be. In saying that, though,
I am the guy that really loved Willy Wonka and the Chocolate. I loved I loved that.
Of course.
I like the old one almost as much as the new one, like, or vice versa, should I say? Yeah. So that is your Mount Rushmore.
Yes.
Lovely. Okay, the next question. Pretend it's 2019, because this question obviously changes. Would you prefer to watch a movie at home or at the cinemas?
Definitely the cinemas.
Nice.
I'm an outsy type person. I'm like, I want to go out. I want to enjoy the experience.
Yep. And when you do go to the cinemas, what's the food of choice?
Popcorn. I can't dismiss popcorn.
It's just the easiest answer.
I smell it and I'm like, popcorn. And now latest is a caramel choc top.
Lovely.
Just to treat myself.
Well, my oldest son introduced me to pouring Maltesers into the hot popcorn.
Oh.
Your hand gets disgustingly filthy, but it is a little bit of magic. All right, so the next thing we have. If you could choose one of the following genres to watch for the rest of your life, and you can only choose one, would you choose comedy, horror, or drama?
I've gone with comedy on this one. You might be able to tell from my list of favourite actors and actresses. I love a good laugh. Horror, despite what people probably, think about me, I'm not huge into. I get too scared by myself.
That's fine. Each to his own. Which film didn't get a sequel that deserves one?
The Goonies.
The Goonies. Nice.
The Goonies. And I'm like, I had to Google that one to double check. I'm like, did it ever get a sequel? No, it didn't.
It got
I think they
spiritual
talked about
sequels. Like, I remember the film Super 8 that came out maybe 2009 was very similar in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Okay. Who would play you in a biopic?
I've got Rose McGowan. I've been told.
Nailed it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Cool.
No questions needed.
Done.
Nailed it. Okay. And what would the main song be in your biopic?
This was a toss-up between Demi Lovato or the one that won it was Pussy Liquor by Rob Zombie.
Nice. Very nice. Very classy.
Yes.
It's a very...
All class.
A very classy movie. A G-rated biopic.
Absolutely.
Lovely. And which movie freaked you out the most as a child? That you can remember.
That I can remember exactly. I was like, oh, I've got Final Destination. The whole series just freaked me out.
That's fine.
Yeah.
That's an answer.
Yeah.
An answer's better than not an answer.
Exactly.
And this one's for the car fans, which not everybody is, but if you could drive one vehicle from a movie, what would it be?
I was naughty. I wrote down 2. I've got the WRX Subaru Impreza that Baby drives in Baby Driver, but he has to drive it for me.
Yep.
But if it's me driving, I've gone with the, I think it's a 70 Chevrolet Nova in Death Proof.
Oh,
that
nicely
black
done.
beast.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. The titular Death Proof car.
Yes.
Nice. If you could add your favourite fictional character to any other film, what film would you choose and who would the character be?
So this is going to give away my list of movies. It all just intertwines. I've got adding Harley Quinn to Guardians of the Galaxy.
What a film that would be.
Yeah.
I'm actually super excited to see James Gunn take on the new Suicide Squad because essentially you get Guardians director helming Harley Quinn. So
perfect.
You're going to get close with that.
I'm going to get close.
Okay, and which actor or actress This is the creepy question. This is Uncle Dave asking this one. Which actor or actress do you find so attractive that if you had them on a VHS tape, you would wear the tape out?
It's Tom Hardy or Margot Robbie, because I'll go either way.
That's fine. That's fine. This question is inspired by my childhood copy of From Dusk Till Dawn.
Oh.
Because it now looks like a barcode when you put it on. Because it's worn out.
Who was your actor or actress that you thrashed the VHS tape to?
Well, I'd like to be a gentleman and say it's George Clooney, but it is Salma Hayek.
Of course.
All right. Well, we are going to jump into some music and we will start your list. Don't forget, anyone listening can join in the conversation. Jump on our social media, whether it be our Instagram, Dave's Video Grave Out on WOWFM, or the same thing on Facebook. This is 100.5 WOWFM. It is 100.5 WOWFM. Shout out to Captain Anto that messaged in, let us know he's tuned in and building some Batman Lego. He said it goes together very well. So what a great way to spend the evening. Unfortunately, myself and Scarlett don't get to listen to DVG, one of the best events to do on a Monday night. And don't forget, if you want to join in the conversation, just send us a message on social media. Speaking of social media, people can check out your journey as a burlesque artist. Where's the best place to check out your work?
Absolutely. Well, so far it's probably Instagram, I'd say. That's where I'm posting the most. And it's Scarlette Santanico 666. That's where I'm posting most of my stuff. You'll see all the shots from my performances. And
I'm guessing from your username, it's a very live, laugh, love, like a very motivational, photos at the beach.
I'm an interesting mix. That's right.
Well, I enjoyed you were like, sorry I took so long. I went to yoga and it helped me finish my list. I'm like, whatever it takes. That's fantastic.
It's all about the Zen.
I haven't been to yoga since. This will show what a grown-up I am. Year 9 in high school, we took yoga. However, I didn't know the social faux pas and whatnot. And our female teacher that took us just kept farting the whole thing, audibly farting. And I'm not mature enough, even to this day, to handle that. And I laughed so hard and so deep that I actually had an asthma attack from because it was almost like she'd waited all week to get it out. And I was just like, I'm not mature enough of a human to handle this. So yeah.
It happens. But the idea of yoga is that you can eventually block all these outside things out and just move on with life. But I still struggle when people let one rip, that's for sure. And people snore too.
Yeah, right.
Got to have a good laugh.
Just full on fall asleep.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
They're paying to be there.
I know.
Awesome. So we are going to hear from your very first choice. But before we do that, let's hear all about it. Scarlett Santanico, for the first time, I think, ever, someone has chosen a film from 2020 as one of their favourite films of all time. We are talking about the second outing of Harley Quinn, because obviously we were introduced to her in the less than perfect Suicide Squad.
Yeah.
I think the biggest letdown there, though, was Jared Leto, because to tell the truth, Harley was fantastic in that film.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I've also got to mention that Jai Courtney was also weak in that movie, simply for the fact he's ruined Terminator for me and Die Hard, so I have to shoot barbs at him at any time. However, a film which one of my favourite modern character actors of all time is in this film and gets totally run rings around. I'm talking about the Obi-Wan himself, Ewan McGregor.
Yeah.
Somehow cannot keep up with Margot Robbie in this film.
I know. He makes a really, really
he gets close, but
he does, yeah. But Margot, yeah, she's just such a great actress.
And Margot is one of the most Aussie names you'll find. It's just Margot.
Yeah, Margot. But then she plays all these American actresses and she does them so well.
Yes, 100%. And, a lot of the world were both met and fell in love with her with The Wolf on Wall Street, which rightfully so. Mm-hmm. This movie, I think, was a bit of a course correction for DC when it comes to the character. However, it was just taking the character that she portrayed in Suicide Squad and putting it in a better movie.
Yeah, and that's what I went with, because I was like, oh, would I go with Suicide Squad? Because I know both of these have had, again, pretty bad raps, and I'm like, I just don't care, because I love Harley Quinn. And I'm like, I wasn't happy enough with her involvement in Suicide Squad, so when this came out, I was just like, yes, 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 and yes, and she played it so well.
Awesome. And obviously coming up with the second Suicide Squad movie shortly. And I love that I would probably say in the last 10 years, she's the most well-casted DC character. Like, a lot of people would point to Aquaman with Jason Momoa, wherever. I just feel like you could recast Aquaman down the track. Yeah. Whereas forever, every time someone says Harley Quinn, she's going to be compared to Margot Robbie.
Yeah. Well, I've been a massive fan of Harley Quinn for a while now, and when Suicide Squad was first releasing and they said Margot Robbie, I was just like, perfect. I was like, this is amazing, and she hasn't let down.
I did like that they stayed true, because obviously I know Harley Quinn from Batman the Animated Series from the 1990s.
Yeah.
I do like that when they're in the nightclub at one of the stages, she's wearing the classic Harley Quinn jumpsuit with the face paint and stuff.
Yeah.
Just enough fan service to, tick it off the list.
Yeah.
And I think Birds of Prey really, it was rated perfectly, because I believe it was an R-rated film, or maybe MA. I reckon it was up there.
Yeah.
But it was the violence was perfect.
Yeah.
The characterization and the style of this film is so good. I loved a lot of particularly the scene where they storm the police precinct and everything's in slow motion and glitter cannons and stuff.
Yeah,
and she's just like fighting her way through.
Yeah.
They kind of leant back on the objectification of Harley Quinn, whereas a lot of Suicide Squad, for, better or worse, was like, look how hot she is in hot pants.
Yeah.
Whereas in this, it was like an empowerment movie for her, because it was like, no, I'm newly single and my own woman, as you heard in the trailer.
Yeah.
And it's a really fantastic portrayal of the character.
Yeah. And I mean, I've seen a lot of different portrayals of Harley Quinn, and a lot of them do try and play on that, like, ditzy blonde kind of character. And the thing is, she's not an idiot.
Yeah.
She's a very smart woman. And
Dr. Harleen Quinzel.
Exactly.
Is a very smart person.
Yeah.
And I was just so excited to see Rosie Perez in a movie again as well. In this
I know, right?
So fantastic. Yeah, obviously you're looking forward to Suicide Squad 2.
I only just found out the other day. I was just, perusing through Google, and there it was. And I'm just like, yes, 2021. Something to look forward to.
Well, until it gets pushed back, of course.
Touch wood.
How many sequels would you be up for with Harley Quinn?
Never ending.
Just keep them coming?
I feel like they've just scratched the surface with her background story in this one. I think it could keep going on. Absolutely. And there's just so much to explore, I think, as well. I've been doing a little bit of extra research lately, and I'm like, absolutely, there's so much more of her to explore.
Definitely.
Such a fun character.
And, everyone points to the amazing casting of Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool, which, even though it's Marvel, I do think it's perfect.
Yes.
But I would still say that Margot encompasses Harley Quinn just as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, she's so tied into the character that you see in a lot of, like, the cartoon of Harley Quinn, which if you haven't seen, you really got to check out.
It's an R-rated. About the season 1 and 2?
Yes,
Harley
yes.
Yeah, watched it.
I love an R-rated
really
cartoon.
Oh yeah.
I love one of the episodes where it's all about someone saying the C word. Like that is the whole.
That's Dr. Psycho.
Yes.
Yeah, he calls I think Wonder Woman the C word. Yeah, and gets kicked out of the Legion of Doom.
Yeah, that is so funny. All right, let's jump back into the music as we get on to your second choice. This is DVG. It is 100.5 WOW FM. We are now talking about a film that is from my least favourite director in the entire world. But, however, Scarlett has chosen it as one of her favourite films of all time. From director Baz Luhrmann, we have Moulin Rouge from 2001. Why did you pick this film?
Well, look, I'm not overly fazed by the director, to be honest. And
it's just that everything Baz Luhrmann does is a slow motion glitter fart. Everything's slow motion. There's just glitter falling in the background. I haven't been a massive fan of his since Strictly Ballroom.
Yeah.
His Romeo plus Juliet looks really cool, but if you revisit it, you'll find that there's not much more going on than that. And of course, this is continuing in his tradition of bigger is better, slow motion glitter farts.
Lots of glitter.
Starring Nicole Kidman and her forehead. Ewan McGregor's back on there. John Leguizamo, one of my favourite character actors of all time, is also in there. And then you get the best hits because obviously with Baz Luhrmann being an Aussie director, you get some of the coolest Aussie character actors. So you got Gary McDonald or Norman Gunston for other people. Richard Roxburgh, who you cannot get a film made in Australia without including him in there somewhere. David Wenham is much the same. I didn't realise Kylie Minogue is the Green Fairy in this film.
Yeah. If you watch it enough times, you'll notice that.
Voiced by Ozzy Osbourne, of all people, apparently. As well. What a bizarre film on paper. Why did you pick this film?
This is one that was like, okay, how am I going to get my love of musicals into this list of 10? And I had to kick a couple out, and this is probably the one that sparked everything for me, I'd say. So all the glitz and the glamour, it's not really burlesque, but, you know.
At least you didn't pick Burlesque, the movie.
Yeah, well, no, I never really got into that one. But this is just one that I can watch over and over again. And look, I'm a bit of a sucker for a love story, and this is just a bit too adorable. And, look, the songs in it just don't get me started. Don't get me singing along. But I've been watching this for years, and it kicked out. What did it kick out? It kicked out Rocky Horror.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
How often do you revisit this one?
This is probably one that I watch a lot. And I will still cry in every single time. I don't want to give anything away if no one's ever watched it, but
it's a film from 2001. I think you're in okay company. Anyone that wanted to see this film saw this film.
I've seen it by now. Yeah, I cry every time she dies, and he's holding her in his arms. I'm just like, damn it! I know what's coming, and I cry every time. I've watched this too many times.
Does he, as she's dying, does he put like a cold press on her forehead, except it's a full bed sheet because of her giant forehead?
You know, I'm really grateful I didn't put Nicole Kidman down as one of my Everest or whatever it was. I was like, do I really like her? And I'm like, no, not really. She is kind of annoying in some of her other movies. She's a little bit over the top, but I can't look past it.
That's fine. This is your list. It's not my list. Doesn't mean I'm not going to tease Nicole Kidman's giant forehead.
You're more than welcome
Baz
to do
Luhrmann's
so.
style. Well, substance. Some amazing character actors in this film as well. A lot, like I said, a lot of well-known Aussies that wouldn't be known outside of Australia. Got Christine Arnoux in there. A lot of 1990s Aussie pop stars. I think a lot of I think that Baz Luhrmann looked after a lot of his friends as he continued with his success. Like, obviously, he did The Great Gatsby, and he had, like, the Edgertons that worked with him earlier in their career. So every word of every song kind of film for you?
Yeah, there's one song that I normally try and skip through, but every other song, absolutely.
Is the song that you skip through the Lady Marmalade song?
No way. I'm like up dancing and singing along to that one. No.
That was a collaboration of which the world will never see again.
I did a dance to that song in like year 4 with my little primary school girlfriends. Yeah. Picture that, like pole dancing at recess and lunchtime.
I'm such a creepy old man that I vividly remember the music video, and I wasn't in year 4. She was in year 10.
Yeah.
So we're different people, but that's fine. We both appreciate good music and good music videos.
Exactly.
Would you be interested in ever being a part of like a live stage show of this?
Absolutely.
Yeah, right.
I would do that, definitely. Yeah.
Why have you not taken it to the stage yet? Have you done an inspired dance from this film?
No, not yet. Like
it's on the list, I'm sure.
It'd be on the list, inspired there. Like I said, I'm pretty new to all this, and I'm like, I just don't know how to go about it. But if someone came to me, or if the opportunity arose, I would definitely do it.
Awesome. Well, we are going to jump in to the next choice. This is 100.5 WOWFM. Don't forget to join the conversation. A film that started out as a heap of Marvel characters that pretty much no one outside of the comic books knew about. I remember seeing that trailer when it first released, and I was like, I'm not interested in that. And it went on to become my favourite entry from the Marvel films. Made for $232 million. It was a big gamble. However, it almost made $800 million in its box office run. Obviously, establishing the Guardians of the Galaxy as a force to be reckoned with. They become a part of the MCU, and the rest is pretty much history. Why did you pick this fantastic film?
Well, I'm pretty new to the DC Marvel world,
yep.
I guess.
Comic book properties.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks to some old friends that have introduced me to this world. And I was like, I'm never going to get into this. Chris Pratt, I've been a bit of a fan of for a while. And as soon as I heard the soundtrack to this film as well, I was sold. Like that opening scene, I cannot stop laughing throughout this whole movie.
And I loved because it was at a time where a lot of the MCU films were very self-serious. And this one even opens up like you think, oh, this is going to be very serious. And then Come and Get Your Love starts playing, he starts dancing. And then it kind of changed the way the MCU was because it started to have a very... It leaned away from being self-serious and it got a lot more fun. I think James Gunn brought so much fun to this film that it was almost contagious to all the other films in the MCU.
Yeah.
James Gunn is an incredible director. Before he did this, he did a lot of fantastic lo-fi indie films that are just so perfectly... I'd recommend for you Super, which is another superhero film. It's got Dwight from The Office in it.
Oh, right.
And it
Perfect.
is... I won't tell you any more about it, but just check that one out. It's really cool. Is this... Obviously, you said you're new to the whole universe of the MCU. Yeah. This has got to be... it's a great starting point because it's just so fun.
I can't actually remember the first sort of movies I was getting into, but this definitely would probably be one of the earliest ones. And I'm just like, I'm hooked. I'm like, where has this been all my life?
Yeah.
So good.
And I love, because, spoiler alert for everyone, Star-Lord being such a ditz of a character, but he thinks he's, the coolest guy ever. And I love, the opening scene. He finds, one of the most dangerous things in the universe and instantly drops it by accident. I just love that the way it's done. And apparently that was an outtake that they left in the movie because James Gunn said that perfectly captures the character because he's just such a douche.
Yeah. Absolutely. I'm also a really big fan of Drax in also this one and obviously the sequel. I don't think he gets a lot of credit, but I think he's hilarious. Just that sort of blunt humor. And I'm just like, amazing.
He takes everything literally. I also really love that he thinks he moves so slow that no one can see him. So he thinks he's invisible a lot of the time. Yeah. It's just the character work in this and a lot of James Gunn work is just... nails it so well. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 was just as good as the first one to me.
Yeah.
Hard
choice between the two, was going to say.
And also, I enjoyed taking my kids to see this at the cinema. We knew nothing about this film, and obviously it opens up with Star-Lord's mum passing away, and we're like, whoops, we probably shouldn't have brought the kids.
Awkward.
And it went on to be much like when I was a kid seeing Jurassic Park at the cinemas, being blown away. That's what it became for my kids, and I just love having that to share with this film. And it just goes from strength to strength. There's obviously the third one coming out, which is rumoured to be called As Guardians of the Galaxy because Thor is now a member of the team.
Yeah, right.
The characterization is so good in all of the films. I love in Avengers Endgame where they meet with Thor and everyone's saying, oh, he's like, he's chiseled from marble. Yeah. And the whole time Chris Pratt's like, but he's not. Yeah. And then the very ending where the Guardians of the Galaxy are taking off with Thor and Thor's like, Rocket says, I'd like him to lead us. Yeah. And Chris, obviously Star Wars like, no, we know who's the leader here. And Thor does a laugh and goes, of course, of course, we know. It's just so well done.
Yeah, and I love how they've integrated it all. I'm not a comic person.
Yeah.
So I can't say yes or no, that's right, that's wrong. I just, I love how it's all integrated so well. And you don't even have to watch the films in order. You can just understand what's going on throughout it. So much fun. Awesome.
Well, we're going to jump back into the music here on DVG as we continue your list. This is Dave's Video Graveyard. This is 100.5 WOWFM, Dave's Video Graveyard, joined by Burlesque beginner / artist. You know what? Make your own title. So the upcoming queen of Burlesque in Australia, nay, the world. We are talking about Scarlett Santanico and her favourite films of all time. Now, the next film is... We've mentioned it already in this show, but it is one of the most heartfelt rom-coms of all time. A lot of people say it's problematic now because of Rob Schneider wearing brown face. However, see past that and see the heart that is 2004's 50 First Dates, starring Adam Sandler and Drew Barrymore. The story is Henry Roth is a man afraid of commitment until he meets the beautiful Lucy. They hit it off after Henry thinks he's finally found the girl of his dreams, however, finding out she has a short-term memory loss syndrome and forgets him the very next day. And it's basically him trying to win her over and help her overcome her, I believe it's called Goldstein syndrome or something. It's a made-up thing, but it's just got so much heart. A lot of people criticised it at the time because it was around the time where Adam Sandler could just pick and choose what he did, and it always seemed to be him going to beautiful locations to film movies and taking all his friends and family. His wife gets a little cameo in it, as she does with a lot of his movies now. But like you said, Adam Sandler and Drew Barrymore together, how can you go wrong? Why did you pick this film?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, it was going to be a toss-up between this one and The Wedding Singer. And look, I've watched this one a lot more than I have The Wedding Singer. I mean, there's some classic ones in The Wedding Singer, but this one is very true to me in the fact that I love a good rom-com. And the whole, I guess, the chasing, of the I have to make you fall in love with me every day, it's a little bit too cute. And anything that's Drew Barrymore and Adam Sandler, I love. They're just such a great combo.
I was devastated recently changing through the channels of free-to-air TV, and this was on, but it was up to the videotape section right at the end on the boat. Ooh. And I was just like, I need a build-up to get to that point. This is just brutal without it. But it's, like we said, it is making light of like a syndrome that could really affect someone. It's not a real syndrome, but it's just done with so much heart, and it's just a well-done... It's essentially a sitcom premise, but it's just done so well, and it's visually great because obviously filmed on Hawaii, one of Hawaii's islands, so it looks beautiful. A lot of people...
what draws it to me.
Well, and then this is, like I said, so many people criticize Adam Sandler because, he goes and makes Grown Ups, and he just goes to like a beautiful lake house to film it. He did Blended, so we got to go to South Africa, which that's another fantastic movie.
Yes, again, Drew Barrymore. But I mean, if you had that opportunity, like as an actor, why not? Like all these people saying, he's just doing this. And it's like, well, wouldn't you? Like,
no, exactly.
If you could make money from this.
It just shows that people wouldn't look after their friends if they made it.
Yeah,
because, if you and your best mates could go to like an exotic location, make a movie, get paid for it, everyone have fun. I'm on the other end of the scale, though, with Kevin James, who's in a lot of Adam Sandler films, because... Yep. I know he's just like a substitute Chris Farley, R.I.P. So I've always held that against him. I'm like, you didn't earn your spot here. Yeah. You were just a substitute because you have the same build. But yeah, how often do you revisit this one?
This one, I don't know. Look, once a year.
Yep.
I'm always trying to find new movies to watch, but if it's just, I'm someone that's like, if I want to sit down and relax and I don't really want to have to involve myself too much, it's always just going to be a rom-com. I'm like, I can just sit back, relax, enjoy. So, look, at least once a year.
You would have been crazy young when this came out as well, because we were talking about the age difference. So I'm like, you wouldn't even have appreciated
I know,
this.
And I look at Adam Sandler now and I'm like, he's probably a little bit too old for you, but you know what? Girl can dream.
And now it is time to hit your next choice, which is a movie that I'm not going to be able to keep up with you for, but I'll do my best. This is DVG. And it is time to talk about The Lord of the Rings for kids that ate crayons. We are talking about Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone from the year of 2001. Please tell me all about the characters such as Humbleberg Crunkledink. And I know nothing about Harry Potter. And I disrespect it just the same.
Oh, no. You know, I was just thinking, I'm like, why didn't I put this higher on my list? Like, this is going to be my all-time favourite movie.
Oh, well, I'm glad I insulted it. It's such a... What was your favourite crayon to eat then?
I don't know, the red ones?
I did not realise, I must admit, one of my 1990s, late 80s, early 90s favourite directors of all time, Chris Columbus, helmed the first one. I believe they got a different director for every one of the films.
I think they did, yeah.
And they're all set over a year of Harry's time at Hogwarts.
Yeah, that's right.
These are things right. I know. I do occasionally listen to my son because
baby steps.
They are massive Potterheads.
Yes.
Choice
Potter.
of words. Yeah, Potter,
Potter.
For now. My son actually, at his brass concert, played Hedwig's theme and the whole crowd lost it. And I was like...
Yes. Am I meant to know what this is?
And I'm like, I looked into it, I'm like, oh, it's written by Danny Elfman, so that's fine.
Yeah.
So the first and the best?
I put down the first because this is definitely one that I've probably watched the most over and over and over and over again and can almost recite word for word. And again, I'm an originals person, so I'm like, I'm just going to put down the first one. I can't choose. There's 8 or 9 films. I'm like, I can't choose.
I think I'm just upset because I missed the boat because 2001, prime time for movies for me, and I just did not care.
You know what? It's never too late.
And I remember when the second Deathly Hallows came out and finished, and everyone had this sense of being there for the entire span of like an epic. Yeah. I was like... Oh, I want that, but I also don't care about these movies.
See, I was a little late to the party. I never read the books first, so I think I watched the first couple of films.
This is not a book-friendly show, so that's fine. I've read 4 books since high school. So.
Oh, wow. That's good. I struggle with books, but I really got into these books. But no, I jumped on the movies. My eldest nephew then was probably around about 10, and we would religiously watch these movies together, and then we'd go and
by religiously you mean you'd dress up as a priest and watch them? That's bizarre, but anyway.
I would dress in Harry Potter clothes, but yes, we'd go to the movies together, and myself and my sister as well, we can recite many lines from this movie.
I know these are words, but I don't necessarily know what they mean. What house are you?
Do you know what? I've tried to do this quiz a couple of times because, of course, I want to be in Gryffindor. I want to be with Harry Potter. But I'm fairly certain I came out as Hufflepuff or something to do with my good nature.
What's Hans Gruber's team?
Hans Gruber?
Alan Rickman. Snape.
Oh, Snape. Oh, my God. Slytherin.
I'll be on his team.
Well, that's what I thought. They're the baddies. And I thought, you know what? I'd rather be in Slytherin than Hufflepuff. But, yeah.
My son gets quite upset when I call him Hans Gruber.
Who's Hans Gruber?
I don't want to mansplain because that's the worst thing ever. Alan Rickman, one of the most iconic bad guys from the original Die Hard film before Harry Potter. But obviously your generation know him as Snape. Or I know him as the angel mega... I cannot think of the name. I know him from Dogma as well, which is one of my favourite Kevin Smith films.
I'm trying to think. I've definitely seen him pop up, but I just look at him and I'm just like, it's Snape, you slithery...
Well, tonight's all about you, so you're welcome to be wrong. He is now and always will be Hans Gruber, or even the Sheriff of Nottingham. But, obviously this film, it's pretty much a modern-day Star Wars in the sense that... the theme parks, the merch, everything involved is just like Metatron. One good friend of the show, Anthony, just let us know it's Metatron was the character.
Okay.
But this film just spawned movie after movie, book after book. Sadly, J.K. Rowling is a terrible human.
Yes.
She's shown herself to be an unrepentant, terrible human now.
Yes.
But there's still the... light at the end of the tunnel that, you know, it took the worst person on earth to write one of the greatest bodies of work of all time.
Exactly. And I mean, there's artists out there, obviously, like, you know, musicians and such that we've seen that are great musicians, put out great music, but you're not going to necessarily stop listening to their stuff.
One of the greatest actors of all time, Kevin Spacey. Terrible human being.
Yeah.
You know, one of the greatest horror writers of all time, H.P. Lovecraft. Terrible human.
Yeah.
Amazing writer. So
Yeah.
it comes down to that argument. We call it the Spacey effect on the show because that's essentially what it is. It's like, how do you have to be able to separate the art from the artist?
Exactly.
Otherwise, it just depends how big your magnifying glass is of what you could still enjoy, which would be nothing.
Yeah. And I mean, I can't necessarily see that J.K. Rowling has put her views and opinions into this fictional story. You know, I read it and I'm just like taken away into another world, and I'm like, I can't believe that she would say those things.
And that's the thing though, like that is probably the main crust of this show, is it's the escapism and it's what they mean to you as a body of work, rather than like going, well, this character is a terrible human, this character is a monster. Because like I said, we would have maybe one Tom Hanks movie that would be allowed to talk about if you went far enough with your magnifying glass.
Exactly.
So, yeah, I'm glad we could have that Hans Gruber Snape argument, and you were very civil for it because it is your evening, so you could have kicked me off the air.
I would never.
Anyway, so let's jump into your next choice as we keep things moving along. And it is time to talk about, speaking of problematic, let's talk about this movie. This is DVG. One of the greatest introductions to an actor of all time, Aceventure Pet Detective. For a lot of people, the first Jim Carrey film they ever saw. Here's the point in the show where we just list all our favourite parts of an amazing film. You have picked Aceventure Pet Detective from 1994. Like we said, same year The Mask and Dumb and Dumber was released. For me, the two scenes, I know it's your choice, but I wanted to quickly get out. The scene where Ace Ventura is snooping around at the party and he climbs over the handrail, hangs off, goes all the way along the walkway, then just steps over and goes through the door, was just the biggest waste of time, but it always just tickled me in such a way. And the other scene of this movie that will always be my favourite is when they go to the mental hospital and he's in the tutu, and he does the play. He then does it in reverse because he rewinds. He then kneels on his knees and just smashes his face into the chair. It is perfection. One of the greatest slapstick actors of our generation, if not of all time. Why did you choose this film? It's your turn to talk now.
Well, I'm glad you enjoy this one too. And as we discovered earlier, it was going to be a toss-up between this and then obviously When Nature Calls.
Yes.
But this came above it, and then obviously The Mask as well, which is a really great one. But this one came out on top for me because this was definitely my first big introduction to Jim Carrey. And on the subject of my favourite scenes, definitely the tutu scene as well. That reverse, that rewind, I'm like, you were just so talented. I'm like, you were amazing.
The reverse of his face hitting the guy's shoulder, like when he goes, it's just amazing.
I was actually reading a quick little, of course I get on and I do my reviews, and I was reading that apparently the only great thing about this movie is the contortion of his face. And I'm like, yeah, look, you probably got a point there, I suppose, but it's just a great film.
Obviously, it hasn't aged well because it was 1994, but watch it as the kid that watched it for the first time. When I watch this, I know that if I ever have my life flash before my eyes, it'll be the birth of my kids, the day I got married, and the day I saw Ace Ventura come out of a rhino in Nature Calls in the cinemas. It changed who I was as a person, and it changed what I realised you could get from seeing a film. It was a magic time, and both these films I love with all my heart. The first one is kind of a better movie, whereas the second one's just a heap of ideas strung together.
Yeah.
Whereas the first one is basically, a crime noir film done with, Ace. You could see this as a Beverly Hills Cop film.
Yeah.
Just replace it with Ace Ventura as the character.
Yeah.
Just the subtleties of Jim Carrey. He's like just, and also in the second one, there's a bit where he's walking through I think it might be the first one. They're walking through the posh party and the band is playing. And just as he goes past, he pulls the celloist's bow on his instrument so that, when they first get to the party before he puts all the stuff in his face, he walks through and it's just and he just goes, woo! and pulls the thing and magic.
So the thing that came into my head, see, I used to always get confused between Pet Detective and then When Nature Calls. What just came into my head was
The
when
Monopoly guy?
Yeah, Monopoly guy. That's, of course, When Nature Calls.
Yep.
Another scene which it's just so quick and stupid, but when he's obviously in Pet Detective and he's figuring out the murder-suicide and he's figuring everything out and the door... Yeah, I'm just like, so good. And I'm like, is there anything this man can't do?
Yeah, what a film. I think pretty much everyone saw all of his movies of the 90s. Obviously faded away a bit after the 90s, but I don't know anyone that didn't. People either loved him or absolutely hated him, and that's the sign of a good artist. Like, to me, I think quite often people tell me how much they hate Will Ferrell, and I'm like, well, the fact he can inspire people to hate, I'm like, that's got to say something of him as an artist.
Yeah.
Do you revisit this film much?
Yes. Yeah. And I had to obviously revisit it to work out my list, and I was like, it just never gets old.
What I would give for a third film.
Yeah.
Like, it could work because obviously
Absolutely.
we got a second Dumb and Dumber, which wasn't great, but it had its moments.
Yeah.
So, yeah, no, what a fantastic choice. And that is what we call the list of things we love about Ace Ventura. It's a weekly part of the show now. We're just going to talk about it every week. We will continue. We got half an hour left. Don't forget, you can join in the conversation like many of the people do. Shout out to Jamie and Captain Anto hitting us up. Also, Captain Anto letting us know that Harley Quinn has been voiced by 2 of the cast members of Big Bang Theory, which would mean a lot more to me if I watch Big Bang Theory. But shout out for the information. I'm sure I'll throw it on some conversation at some point and ruin everything. So let's get in the next film that you have chosen. It is DVG. In 2008, Tom Hardy disappeared into the character of Bronson for the film of the same name, a story about a young man who was sentenced to 7 years in prison for robbing a post office, and he ends up spending over 3 decades in solitary confinement. And boy, oh boy, if you didn't know it was Tom Hardy, like, it's one of those things where he just disappears into the character. It's a little bit art house in the way they present Bronson, because not only does he play the straight-laced character, but he also has his alter egos appear to himself, so he gets a bit of back and forth when he's in the cells and whatnot. Why did you pick this fantastic film?
So I'm pretty new to the Tom Hardy world. I think I was sort of introduced in the Bane era when I was getting into that, and then I went on a bit of a Google spree and was watching all his films, and then this one came out and it just blew me away. I was like, I didn't actually know this guy could act so well. He's one of those, I love the actors or actresses that can just play, you know, a million different characters, and this one was just amazing, like, just blew me away. I told you I didn't realize it was based on a true story.
Yes.
Found that out obviously recently, and I was like, wow, this guy is a nut job. And I've got, you know, I love my comedies, but I do love a good brute film, and obviously a bit of eye candy there as well.
Fun to look at. Have you checked out Legend as well, where they play both Grey brothers?
Yeah,
what
that's
a
another
great
good
film
one
as well.
Yeah.
Tom Hardy's one of those, like, he's a method actor, so he's a lot like Daniel Day-Lewis and Gary Oldman. Once he's in a character, you can completely forget, because nothing's like him.
Yeah.
He's actually said that the closest to him as a person is actually in the movie Venom.
Another great film. Yeah, right.
My wife likes him in that. She likes the rugged, dirty hair.
Bit of beard going on.
Bit of stubble. Bronson is it. I'm glad it's on your list. It hasn't come up before in a guest choice special.
Yeah.
But it is one of those movies that I feel over the next 10, 20 years, people are going to rediscover it, and it's going to get a real cult following that it deserves, because the fact it didn't win an Oscar is like, it's one of those movies like Joker.
Yes.
Where you watch and you go, this deserves an Oscar.
Yeah, and you do kind of have to watch it a couple of times, I think. Like you called it that art house kind of vibe, which is right, because you watch it a couple of times over and over, and you pick up on so many different layers, I think, to
definitely.
him as a character. And it's just insane, and the way that he plays his alter egos as well. There's this scene, and he's painted as like a woman and something on the other face, and he sings, and it's incredible.
And the real life Charles Bronson, I believe the statistic is like he did more damage to the prisons than like any prisoner ever. I think he did like millions and millions of dollars of damage to the different prisons he was in, including climbing up on a roof and just completely destroying the roof by starting a riot. Like he was just one of those characters, almost like Ned Kelly, where it's like he's a through and through criminal. However, he's inspired people with the stories of the stuff that he did. And this movie does it justice. Like it's I'm sure it'd be one of the streaming services, but like we said, because it's got that art house vibe, or what my dad would call a weird movie. So, it's not a straightforward biopic in any stretch of the imagination, but it does give you so much of what he's about.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. Well, it is time to go into Tim Burton town as we go to your next choice. This is DVG. It is one of the most perfect Tim Burton films of his entire career. Right back near the start of things, he obviously did Batman in 1989, one of the greatest Batman films, if not the greatest Batman of all time, if you're over 35. That's the rules. You cannot disparage Michael Keaton's Batman. Beetlejuice preceded that, and then, of course, 1990s Ed Wood Scissorhands. You have chosen. What a fantastic film. It still holds up because everything in this film's done practically, so it's all on screen. The characterization, the acting, everything's perfect. I'm guessing that's why you picked this film.
Of course, and of course it's Johnny Depp. So I reckon this is probably what got me into my Johnny Depp obsession. I was a baby out of 5 kids, and I reckon they all introduced it to me, and we just thrashed this movie so much from the, Avon calling. Our auntie used to be back in the early days, an Avon woman. It's just such a beautiful film. So amazingly done. The music, obviously, like Tim Burton's just such a creative. I love it. And again, it just shows how good Johnny Depp is. I guess that, variety in his acting style. I loved this character.
And it shows how effective Johnny Depp is of an actor because he does so much with his facial expressions with so few words that it just, you fall in love with him as a character. Even like, Winona Ryder is fantastic in this film. I think it's perhaps his most perfect film, and it informed so much of the scene kids of the early 2000s through to like 2005.
Absolutely.
Everyone had your stripy sleeves, your red and black, your Tim Burton-esque hair. It was all there. He was the blueprint for what became a lot of terrible music. However, I'm not talking about your pop punk. I'm talking about what's known as screamo, which is what everyone called it when they just couldn't classify a hardcore band.
Yeah, no, I went through that period in my life as well, and I'm not going to put it down. I loved that time in my life.
And I always love, like, you watch bands like Good Charlotte.
Yes,
they released their first album and their first singles and music videos, and they're very, very poppy. And then it's like they all watched Edward Scissorhands one too many times, and all of a sudden they just had that,
Was that Chronicles of Life and Death? I think?
Yes,
and
they even had the music video that looked like it.
Yeah, the cartoons and stuff.
It informed so much of... Tim Burton has rubbed off on so many things.
Yeah.
Sadly, like we said with Johnny Depp, he's almost become a bit of a caricature of what he used to be because, he's not delivering the goods as much. However, I do say this every time Tim Burton comes up. He did a film in about 2011 called Frankenweenie.
And it's a cartoon.
Yep. Yeah. It is as good as Edward Scissorhands, but no one bothered seeing it.
I haven't watched that one yet.
It is on my list for...
I'll be checking
it has the same vibe for sure as Edward Scissorhands.
Just in a cartoon version.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, right.
I beg you to watch that.
I would definitely watch that one. Frankenweenie.
Awesome. So obviously you're a fan of Beetlejuice?
Yes. Yeah. I was like, I've got to squeeze in a Johnny Depp movie. And then I started thinking, I'm like, well, it's Edward Scissorhands. And then I was like, well, Beetlejuice. And I'm just like, any other Tim Burton film? And I'm just like, no.
Yeah.
It's got to be Edward Scissorhands. But yeah, absolutely. I'm actually looking into a Beetlejuice-inspired burlesque routine.
Of course.
Of course. Got to love the black and white stripe.
Get a bit of Danny Elfman in there. It'd be perfect.
Absolutely my style.
And he's created a timeless style as well.
Yeah.
Because, it was inspired by the 50s and 60s science fiction that he was obsessed with.
Yeah.
Done in this 80s centric, it's such a cool style.
I love it. Yeah.
Well, it is time that we cover, I think, the second sequel on your list this evening. This is 100.5 WOWFM. First, we'll hear a song from the movie. We travel back now to the year 2002, where we all wore wallet chains, flame-covered shirts. It was a good time. We're all riding blade scooters, and all of our sequels had to have new metal in them. And we have, perhaps, outside of Adam Sandler's Little Nicky, a film that features some of the most new metal in a soundtrack. Actually, there's three. There's Jet Li's The One, Queen of the Damned, and Little Nicky. All have amazing new metal soundtracks. However, this is a weird sequel to Interview the Vampire, which is also a super... I loved it at the time, but revisiting it, it's very... Brad Pitt's super whingy in that movie. He just cries the whole movie pretty much. You've chosen Queen of the Damned from 2002. Why did you choose this film?
Good question. Apart from the awesome soundtrack, again, like I said to you, growing up, I was pretty much first introduced to new metal. So this movie was just like amazing in that sense. I had to choose a vampire movie, and so for me it was a toss-up between Queen of the Damned, Interview with the Vampire, which like you, watching it over, I was just like, too whingy.
Yeah.
And then, well, obviously my name Santanico comes from Dusk Till Dawn, but this would be my introduction to the vampire world. So this was definitely the one that got me into the the creepy vampires.
And everyone come out against Stuart Townsend replacing Tom Cruise in the franchise, but he's fun to look at.
He's a babe in this, can I just say. Absolute babe as Lestat in this one.
And obviously Aaliyah passed away before the film was released. However, it was kind of a sign of an amazing career that we missed out on, because she is so menacing and creepy in this movie. Yeah. All the music, all the songs in the movie were written by Jonathan Davies of Korn.
Yeah.
And it always was so weird. In the opening of this movie, it plays that song, which is Forsaken, but it's Jonathan Davies' voice on it. And it's not as good as Dave from Disturbed, but it's just weird to, why change it?
I know, you listen to the soundtrack back and you're like, you're so used to hearing Jonathan Davies, and you're like, oh, but this is a bit better. Some of them aren't better though. Some of them you're just like, nah, I like Jonathan Davies' version better.
Yeah, definitely. I always remember that Body Crumbles song.
Inside my body crumbles.
But it just started with the happiest, ding, 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 ding. What a soundtrack. What a soundtrack. If you don't like new metal, it's not for you, but who cares? Because it's spelled N-U. And there's no Limp Bizkit on it, so,
There isn't.
I haven't revisited this one, but like I said, I recently revisited Interview the Vampire, and it's just like, oh, if Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt just hurry up and kiss. Because spend the whole movie just whinging, and you're like, you'll get over it. Just kiss, and everything will be better, you two.
Yeah. The relationship between Marius and Lestat in this one is not quite as involved, I guess. Lestat's a lot more of an individual. My
biggest issue with Queen of the Damned is they made Lestat and Aaliyah so cool.
Yeah.
That there was no good counterpoints. You didn't care about Van Helsing's great-great-great-great-granddaughter and whoever that English dude was.
Yeah.
It's you don't care. The rest of Lestat's band's more interesting than any of the other characters in this film.
Yeah. And I was at some point I was like, why did he end up with that Jessie chick? I'm like, no, he should have been with Aaliyah.
And even watching it back, it's one of those things where can you imagine how good a concert would be, like that open door concert with all the big fire stacks and stuff? That would never happen, but it's exciting to think about, however. Now, going to the other end of the musical scale, your final choice this evening is from 1987, starring Patrick Swayze and Jennifer Grey. It is a timeless classic. You ask anyone's auntie ever. We are talking about Dirty Dancing. Why did you pick this film?
Well, don't ask my auntie, but ask my eldest sister. What is she? She'd be about...
Oh, you're gonna name shame her,
I'm
right?
not,
Are you gonna
I'm not
age
gonna,
shame her?
I'm not
right
going to
now?
give her an age. No, she's a little bit older than me. But, wow. She used to live in this granny flat above the house from us when we lived on a farm, and she just used to crank this soundtrack, and she got a pair of those silver dance heels, and we all wanted to get in those shoes. We all wanted to learn the dance, and this movie just has so many fond memories for me. And probably first introduced me to anything kind of sexual or risque in a movie. I was like, oh, wow, they're having sex.
What's that?
Yeah,
Can you explain
what
it
is
right
that?
now on air? I remember because this was like, I would always hire Star Wars or The Labyrinth when we'd go to the video shop. My sister would always hire Dirty Dancing and Rocky Horror.
Yeah.
And I remember we had a kiddie pool waist deep, and still I would try with me and my sister. We were both built like Ham Porter out of Sandlot Kids or Brucey Bogtrotter from Matilda.
Yep.
So two little chubbers trying to do the lift and just ended up crushing the other one. And then I was so weak. My sister's like, oh, well, I'll try the lift. So I have a vivid remember of jumping and just crushing my sister, trying to do the lift. But that's the dream. So when you're back on stage and performing as a burlesque artist and you need a Patrick Swayze, except we'll do the reverse lift. One thing I really enjoyed, I watched a documentary, the Movies That Made Us on Netflix. And the first episode, as boring as it was about Dirty Dancing.
Yeah, right.
And one thing that really impressed me about this film is before they started filming, Patrick Swayze's blown out both of his knees.
Oh,
so
really?
he filmed this entire movie with 2 bad knees to the point where he'd have to lie down and ice them. Then they'd call action, he'd get up, which is so impressive given the final dance number.
Yeah.
Where he jumps off the stage and lands on his knees.
Exactly.
It's just like, you did that with busted knees.
He is was an amazing actor as well. Gotta say that.
And it's also sad, the double standards of beauty in Hollywood as well, because it comes up quite often. Jennifer Grey was going to be the next big thing. After Dirty Dancing, a lot of reviews were giving her crap about the shape of her nose.
Yes.
And she got so self-conscious that she actually had it cosmetically enhanced and fixed.
Yep.
And then there was nothing that stood out about her, and she got no more roles.
Yeah.
Because she fixed what everyone perceived as her weakness. And that's that sucks.
Yeah, that is the life of Hollywood, unfortunately, though, isn't it?
It is. That's why I'm never going to fix my beautiful nose or drawn out eyebrows. Yes, they do have eyebrows. I'm sitting across from 2 of the nicest eyebrows I've ever had on the show.
These ones are drawn on, but look, I've got imperfections too. I've got a big, my big old trumper tooth, which I just refuse to get rid of. These things make us.
That's it. And one day I'll grow eyebrows and you'll all be sorry.
You can just get them tattooed on now.
That's it.
You'll be fine.
We are pretty much out of time this evening. However, before we go, we need to hear about the best place to check out all of your work.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we mentioned earlier, Instagram is definitely the place to go. I do have a fan site only also, which is, you can follow the link in the bio on my Instagram page if you want to find some more of the fun stuff, but mainly Instagram. It's Scarlett_Santanico 666 for everything me, lots of pictures about me, but also a lot of my words and insights.
Yep.
Yeah.
And also, happy birthday to your dog.
Thank you. My little Jimmy Pop turned 7 today. Thanks for the shout out.
That's it. This is DVD. Don't forget, Krez is on his way into the studio. This is 100.5 WOW FM.